by background, I'm a publicist, and I love working with the media. It's probably my favorite thing to do is tell stories. What I'm doing now is much broader than that. If you want to survive as a public relations company in the next 5 to 10 years, you really have to offer a lot more.
All right. So, hey, Morgan, good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you made time for the podcast. So, you're the guest here that's more, I'm more familiar with because the others were, founders based in London. And now you are a founder based in London. So, you qualify to be on the podcast, which is cool.
Yes, I do. Here we go.
So, what's happening? What's Blair Reputation Management? Can you go into that?
Sure. So I started the company about 6 months ago, pretty fresh. I took some time off last year after my last business was acquired and, started freelancing, taking on a few clients in London. And at the beginning of this year, I decided, it's time to really go for it. So I set up the business here. I'm in London full time. I now have a team of 7, and we have offices here in London, New York, and Dubai. And it's the biggest difference now is geographically. Of course, I'm in a different place. Um, and being in London, it just gives me so much exposure to Europe and the Middle East. And it's a great connecting point. So, working with clients, I have clients in Amsterdam, in Spain, in Paris, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and London. And so I see London as really the Mecca and the best possible connecting point between all of these amazing places. Um, and I think the access and opportunity that it's given me is really incredible. So I'm really happy to be here now, and it's certainly a shift coming from the U.S., but such an incredible place to build a business.
So, compared to Bevel, your previous business,
Yeah.
where you were, I think, how did you describe your role at Bevel? Was it like co-founder or
Yeah, I was a partner there.
partner? Yeah.
So, I was the first employee, first hire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was myself and the founder, and we scaled that business over 7.5 years. So we started in New York City. Um, we, set up an office there and eventually opened 6 offices in the US, one in London, and we had about 55 people when we sold it. That was in spring of 2023. So I had this really incredible, sort of unconventional career journey in my 20s. I think I just turned 23 when we started that business. And so, I was thrown into working with some really incredible Wall Street investors from the very beginning. Point 72, which is a very large hedge fund, family office, and Steve Cohen, it was our very first client. And, that was such an incredible experience for me. We worked with a lot of iconic investors throughout that journey, like Steve, Alan Patricof, a lot of amazing fintech companies, which are, unicorns today.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a really incredible rise, and I think, considering the life cycle, it was pretty fast as well.
I mean, I think about what I did in my 20s. I was just backpacking through Asia and I was trying to avoid all responsibility and being an adult. So it's pretty cool to listen to that and think about what I could have done in my 20s, but no regrets.
No regrets. You only regret what you don't do, right?
Yeah.
And so I look at every opportunity I try to say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when the opportunity is there, you have to take it. And it might not be the most, you might say, oh, I don't know if this is the right time, or am I taking on too much? But I always believe in grabbing the opportunities in front of you and making the most with those.
So how are you able to get clients all over the world just 6 months after opening your shop? Um, what is it that they need that you are able to provide specifically?
Yeah, sure. So, a lot of public relations, media relations companies, the founder tends to use their name and then they'll say public relations. And I wanted to do something different. And, reputation management, from my perspective, it covers a bit more than just traditional PR and traditional media. So when you think about a company's reputation or a person's reputation, people typically say, uh, your brand is who you are when you leave the room. It's what people say about you when you're not there. And so that is such an expansive definition. Uh, and so, reputation management, it's not just public relations and media relations. It's things like investor relations, customer communications, internal communications as well. So, one of my clients in the US was recently acquired by Chobani, which is a multi-billion dollar dairy company. And before that acquisition, my team was responsible for the internal communication. So, how do we share this with the team members who might be affected? Um, how do we talk about this on our digital channels? How do we communicate this to investors? So it's broader than just communicating with the media externally. Um, and I think now with AI and all of the threats that we're seeing to people's brand and image online. Um, on the digital side, there's a lot that you can do to manage someone's digital footprint. And I think that work is more important than ever before. You know, by background, I'm a publicist and I love working with the media. It's probably my favorite thing to do is tell stories. Um, but I think what I'm doing now is much broader than that.
Hmm.
And media relations is one piece of the pie. And I think if I take a step back at a 40,000 foot view, if you want to survive as a public relations company in the next 5 to 10 years, you really have to offer a lot more. Um, and so I'm thinking, I'm always future planning and forecasting, what are the potential threats to hit my business. And I think being able to offer quite a bit more is important. Um, Another thing that you know, because I am positioned in the center of investors, tech startups, I'm meeting with family offices, I'm meeting with, people on both sides of that coin. I'm being approached to make introductions. And so that's been a really, you know, interesting part of my business. And again, it just adds a little bit more value to the client beyond traditional PR.
So this is kind of interesting because PR is something that's always changing, I feel. And it used to be your media list and your top publications, and then social media showed up. And now it's like you can, for lack of a better word, Google yourself on ChatGPT, right? And then the AI will come up with a summary of who you are based on whatever is available, scraping.
Yeah.
Um, I would imagine that reputation management is a lot about how the AIs are talking about you. Are you getting into that as well?
Yeah, that comes up a lot in conversation. And that is a hard thing to combat, right? Because the information is there. So often I talk about this with my clients. There's a lot of information that exists on the internet, right? Um, and the question is, how do I change my brand? How do I change people's perception of me? How do I kind of make some of this old stuff go away? And when you think about crisis management as well, the thing that we have to think about is how do we create positive stories and tell positive stories and create news um, that drives up search results from there. And when you proactively create that positive news, eventually some of the old stuff or the negative stuff will kind of die out.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, more broadly in America, we are quite forgiving. So, I've worked with founders and CEOs who have made terrible mistakes in the press and they've said things that they regret. And, they've been completely slammed on social media and the works. And so, we've combated that over typically this takes a couple of years by kind of flooding the zone with positive news and press. And I think, that takes a bit of scrappiness, right? And like I said, a bit of time to kind of shift that narrative. Um, but once you do that, it's really powerful. So to go back to your question about AI, this is a big topic that's coming up right now, and the AI is moving so quickly that we can't necessarily control it. But there's a lot of proactive steps that we can take for our clients.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not easy work, which is why they can't do it alone and they need to talk to you. And then you have your team. Um, what about managing a team? That sounds very different than what you were doing before, as I think more like a strategist at Bevel, if I'm not mistaken. But now you're like a people manager, right?
Yeah, so and I don't have a business partner. It's just myself. So, you know, at my last company, I was managing the New York office for quite some time. We were about 30 people there. That was our headquarters. And so, you know, one thing that people ask me is AI going to replace all of the junior staff that you need and even some of the mid-level staff? And my answer is no.
Yeah.
AI is a tool that helps my team move faster. Uh, we use AI on the back end a lot. We use it for research. But I look at every level as critically important. I think when it comes to manage it, I like to think of it more as development. So, how do I take this person's strengths and weaknesses and really develop them into the best publicist that they could be? Um, my former business partner, one thing she would talk about a lot is how anyone can be trained.
Mhm.
And that's something I've definitely taken with me because if you're curious, and you wanna learn new things and you are a bit of a hustler, I think you always have to be scrappy working in media no matter what level you are. Um, Anyone can be trained to learn new things. So, I went to journalism school. I don't have a financial services background. Um, but my clients are hedge funds and venture funds and PEs. So I have had to learn all of that over the last 10 years of my career. Um, and I really believe that if you're intellectually curious and you like learning new topics and going down a black hole into something, um, you definitely could be trained. And so, I don't think you need to come into financial services or tech knowing everything. Things are changing all the time anyway. So, you might as well be learning something new every day.
Yeah, I think that's super motivating to know that you don't have to be a finance major to be part of this world, let's say from the PR perspective. I think it just takes that incredible energy and curiosity to just jump at a problem and figure it out because I hire a lot of young people and I see very early, very quickly, like who are the ones that are like you, 23 years old, getting into it, learning, asking questions, and who are the ones that are just like overwhelmed or expecting kind of like an SOP book to follow, which I don't have one of those for my team. you know.
Yeah. Me neither. Yeah, I think, and I like to put myself back in my shoes at 23. What was I confused about? What did I need? And the biggest thing you can have is a mentor. I
Mhm.
think in your 20s, the number one thing is find a mentor. Um, it might not be obvious at first, but find someone who can bring them with you on the journey. And so that's what I try to do with my team. I look at it as mentorship, personal and professional development, constantly learning and just, doing the best I can. I'm still quite young, so I'm also learning.
Mhm. So, what is the ultimate outcome for your clients when they work with you, onboarded? What are they looking to achieve in the end, or do they stay on retainer with you over many many months, years?
Sure. So brand building is a long-term process. So many of my clients are on retainer, and I think they come to us with different needs. So, for example, I have a venture fund who is going through a rebrand at the moment. And that's been really fun to work on. Um, I have a late stage consumer business in the US that was recently acquired. Um, their needs now are much different as they merge with their acquirer. Um, I have a small venture fund based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, investing in quantum. And so, they have contracts with the government, and that's quite different as well. We're doing a bit of government relations there. So it really depends, but I think, the simplest way to describe what I do is anything communications, external and internal.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, that lends itself to the full picture reputation management. Um, you know, most of my time, if I could, would just be working with the media. So the financial tech and business press. Um, I work with those reporters all the time across, Europe, the UK, Middle East and the US. I love pitching stories. Um, I love just sitting down with reporters and understanding what they're interested in, what trends are they following, who do they want to talk to. And I think, in this age of AI where everyone could sound the same if they wanted to, I like to spend time with my CEOs and founders to really help them craft the message. What makes them unique? Who are they? What's their story?
Hmm.
Um, and we do quite a bit of media training, and so that is so important because, like I said, everyone can go on LinkedIn and claim to be an expert about XYZ topic, and you can start to it can all start to sound the same. So I think PR is more important now than ever because people want to sound different. And, you know, I only work with people who are real experts.
Hmm.
Um, I work with people that I really believe in, that are extremely credible, that are highly skilled. I have many clients who are PhDs and, you know, people who have they're not, what am I trying to say? They're not bullshitting. They really know their stuff.
What's like
Um,
the expectation on your end to know their technology and their IPs, or are you just catching up as soon as you onboard a client and trying to learn things?
yeah, it depends. It really depends on what the subject matter is. So my client that invests in quantum and chips and semiconductors, I'm learning a lot. I have clients that invest in fintech and Web3, and I know quite a bit about that through my experience. So it depends on what it is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's, my requirements, and we're very particular about who we work with. my requirements are if I'm learning something new from you and I believe in your story and I believe in you, um, then, that's exciting to me.
Yeah, for me, I mean, PR is about the story. And I remember working at in-house at Acer, and it was like, here's a server, and we want to release this product, and we need a press release. And I had to figure out what's the story behind this server or like a laptop or a display. And it's like, I actually enjoyed those challenges where you had to figure out the unique angle behind something really boring and technical.
Yeah.
And I think because your former business partner was our mutual friend, she always said you were great at PR. So what I heard from that means you're great at crafting the story. Is that more or less what you was your skill?
Yeah,
Is your skill?
I think so because of my journalism background.
Mm.
And I wanted to be a writer, by the way, but I wasn't going to make enough money. Uh, I think, yeah, I love telling people stories. I don't love being in the limelight. I like to put other people in the limelight and love shaping a message. I think that comes very naturally to me.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so, that's what I feel fortunate to be able to do that again, in a different market. And, culturally, things are quite different here in the UK than the US. But I'm a very quick learner. And so it's not, it's not been too challenging.
So like we handle clients with personal branding, but reputation management, it sounds like it could be just a variation or synonym to personal branding, but I noticed you never use that word when you describe your service or what clients want from you. What is personal branding and what is reputation management in
Sure.
your opinion?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think personal brand is a bit more about the aesthetic. So I think of it as look, feel, imagery, design, frankly, things that I am not very good at. I have a wonderful designer, Madison, who designed our website and decks and all of that collateral. Um, I think that is a bit more about the aesthetics. I think reputation management is more about what people say about you when you leave the room. Um, and, I've worked with I've worked with public companies. I've helped take companies public. Reputation could be the difference between, being able to go public or not. It could be the difference of hundreds of millions of dollars for that company. So this has a real impact on numbers and the company's ability to grow and, launch in other markets, and really think about the next level. It's really, really important. I'm sure we all have examples of companies that have gone through a scandal, or massive crises and did not handle it well. And that's sort of their stamp, and people remember that. And like I said, in America, we're very forgiving. So, you if you have the right counsel, um, companies have the ability to change that.
So where are you going to take this firm? Are you going to plan for global domination or are you going to keep it boutique? What do you have in mind?
Sure. So I love the fact that I'm global now. Personally, being in London is the best decision I made, professionally as well. But like I said, it gives me so much access and it's so easy to travel around. Um, I believe we are so connected now. And as a firm, if you're able to offer support in, you know, I met with the founder of the largest venture fund in India last week at Super Return, and he was speaking on the super venture stage. And he has a lot of deals in MENA, and he's interested in more exposure there. And so we're working on a proposal for him. That's a great example of someone who is has an amazing brand in India and works with the government and everyone knows them, but they need to do more. Um, so, you know, I believe globalization is here to stay, despite what, the US administration is talking about. And if you're able to offer, um, you know, services beyond just the market that you're based in, it's really valuable. There are lots of small firms in, local markets throughout Europe, but I think to really sustain, you need to think bigger. And so for me, I don't know if I would scale this and sell it again. But it's definitely interesting. And my number one priority is keeping my clientele quality high. Um, I've worked with lots of startups. I've worked with, I remember at Bevel, we kind of rode the ICO boom and took on some of those clients, which went bust. So I'm really focused on, high quality, sustainable people and businesses. And, I'm not willing to expand and perhaps sacrifice the quality of the work.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Sounds amazing. So wish you all the best, and
Thank you.
I want to follow your story as it keeps developing and keep expanding. And
Thank you.
let's meet again in this time next year, and then
Yeah.
see how things went for you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, this time next year, hopefully a lot more growth and more exciting things to come.